I'm still not sure why I'm the one teaching this class. It's time for Confessions with your Sunday school teacher. This past week, I was at a journalism technology conference where we were launching some new projects and showing off some stuff. So here is my robot taking video of me using VR with my phone in my hand. And so, this is one of those, like just the epitome of of how bad this really is. But I was at this conference, and if you saw on social media that I had to post this picture because at 11 o'clock in the morning, my social media time allotment was about to run out. Okay. I would like to think it was because I was at the conference and I was working and I was networking. But really, as much as I told myself that, I was bored in the sessions and I was just scrolling on Facebook. So I was doing what I get mad about my students doing, right? But I didn't actually realize I was bored until I started thinking about what we were going to be teaching. I'm like, no, I wasn't just working. I was bored and was just scrolling through. This is a topic that believers and non-believers see as an issue. So this is a great opportunity for you to say, I've been going through this class, and we've been learning a biblical perspective on how you should manage your technology or social media, or however you want to say it. But I think this is a chance for you to go out and share with others about what you're doing, and maybe invite them to come join us. So. This week, you were supposed to think about your space and how you could help craft and build your space around making good character choices and alternatives to going to technology. So instead of our living rooms being built around the television, could we build them around something else? All right. So did anyone make any changes? Okay. Any thoughts? Okay. So.
She did. And then we did.
Well, we'll go ahead and show the Dowdies. This is the before picture from the Dowdies. Okay.
Why is that so bad?
Look at how messy it is.
That looks organized.
Okay. But wait, just wait. There's the joy and excitement of an organized, easily accessible game cabinet.
I
So
know.
Laylee sent that. Did anybody else think about this and come up with some ideas? All right. Well, hope you can find ways to organize and focus. In the last class, someone mentioned they went ahead and instituted the no screens in the bedrooms for themselves and their kids, and they got on Amazon and got a charging station and put it in their kitchen. And so it stays in the kitchen, and that's where they keep their phones. And then there was another gift from one member of the class to another member of the class to like phone jail, but it's a little nicer one. Talking is the new texting. High-speed connecting, no Wi-Fi required. Together time is the original social network. Put your phones down and stay a while. Okay. So this box is if people come over, guests come over, when they have dinner, everybody has to put their phone in the box. And so, and she was like very adamant, like, I got to get that back today. So, so we were thankful for that. All right. The other thing we talked about was scheduling our time and scheduling when we're not going to use the phone. So did anybody try that this week of not using the phone at certain times? I see shaking head. Yeah. Just so you know, next week will be a very tactical, practical guide on how to filter and monitor your family, and kind of keeping all those things. And so I'm going to go through and say these are the ones that are good for this. Here's the free options. Here's a little bit paid version because you need Android and iOS or whatever. So I'll help pull those all together for you. Yeah, it's going to be like a guide. There'll be a guide on how to do this. So. Did anybody try no phones for an hour at dinner or anything? Okay. I wish you had. So I think as you're going to get into this, the commitments part that we're going to be writing for ourselves, try that this week and see if you can make it through that. So yeah. Yes. They were more committed than you guys were.
Well, we kind of already.
You already do that? Good. Okay, good.
Between cooking,
Mm-hmm.
eating with our kids, talking, I mean,
Yeah.
there's a full hour at least that phones don't get touched.
Good.
So they were so ahead of the game.
Oh, so y'all are good. Yeah. So,
So much better than
yeah. So,
So Steve,
The hour's good.
the hour part we got is the day.
The day in the week.
yeah. Yeah, so if you weren't here last week, it was what the book uses is 1 hour a day, 1 day out of the week, 1 week out of the year. I feel like I can do the week out of the year. I feel like I can do the hour a day. It's that whole day that would be really hard.
When you're
But
at work.
like a Sabbath. Yeah. So, and they do it on Sunday, and I'm not willing to give up football. So, yeah.
So
What are you gonna say, Joseph?
We were in the Shenandoah National Park. This is pretty.
So your righteousness come down a little bit.
Righteousness drops down.
Good.
Yeah, big
So, yeah, John.
What about the flip side of that? I was thinking about this when you've got somebody on the other side who's in the forced, Sabbath of technology Sabbath, and you're trying to get a hold of them, and you get an out of office, like I'm gonna, that's super inconvenient for me.
Right. How dare you not have your phone on Sunday
We're in
afternoon?
the middle of something here. and
Yeah.
I have to wait another week, and
Yeah.
I've had that a couple times.
So,
And then you ask, where were you last week? And they say, well, my father died.
Yeah, I don't ask.
yeah.
For that.
So when I was at the Washington Post, you knew what story was coming.
Story. Oh, yeah.
I remember on a Saturday morning, I was pushing Hudson in the stroller, and this is to go back. It was on my BlackBerry. Okay, got my BlackBerry. I got a message on my BlackBerry. It was an HR thing that we needed to deal with, but it could wait until Monday. So it was something I wanted to reply like with a big answer, so I put it back in its holster. And it could wait till Monday, so I, just kept going. Well, Sunday morning, my boss sent the email to the person, basically gave them everything they asked for. That was like my employee, that's like, she basically got like keys to the whole house. And so I was frustrated about it. So Monday morning I go in and I talk to my boss and I say, you didn't give me a chance to respond. And he said, I gave you 24 hours. And I said, it was Saturday over Sunday. He goes, I pay you to be available. And at that moment I thought, you may pay me today, but not for long. Right? Like that was kind of the start of us deciding that like if I'm going to be the father I want to be, it was not going to be tied to at the time BlackBerry all the time, right? So yeah, my Crackberries at the time. So let's go ahead and jump into the book of Proverbs. So open your Bibles. It's okay to pull out your device and open to Proverbs 3. So if you listened to the tape last week, Jeff did the reading for us, and if you listen to the audio, it's really kind of fun because it says, Jeff, will you do this? And he's like, sure. And then I cut, because I couldn't hear him very well on the microphone, and it goes to the professional ESV, this is the Bible, voice. And it's like, Jeff is like, you should listen to it, because it's like this little Bible section right there where I played that. So Jeff, you did such a great job, synthetic voice and real voice. Would you mind reading Proverbs 3, verses 1 through 4 for us?
Yes, technology's going to bring it back in 1 minute.
Sure. Sorry.
3, 1 through 4.
Yes, please.
My son, don't forget my teaching, but let your heart keep my commands. For they will bring you many days, a full life, and well-being. Never let loyalty and faithfulness leave you. Tie them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will find favor and high regard with God and people.
Very visual language. So Solomon giving wisdom here. He's sharing to his son, giving advice to his son. And he says don't forget my law. And he's not talking about, even though he's the sovereign of the land, he's not talking about his law. He's talking about God's law, right? And to keep this. And he says, let your heart keep my commandments, right? I think heart and mind, when we see it in this type of writing, mind is to know it intellectually, to remember it, but to take it in your heart is to take it that next step farther. that we act upon it, that we are obedient, that we know it in a way that we know exactly what we should do in the exact moment that we do it. And then for the length of days and years of your life and peace, they will add to you. Okay? So there will be benefit from this. By keeping God's laws and making them a part of who you are, then there will be benefit. Now, that is in principle, and I think it's very important as we look at Proverbs that we don't think of them as transactional promises. So it's not a, if you do this, this will be the case. These are God's grace and principle. So, if you are doing these things, it is pretty likely because of God's grace on this earth that these things will work out in favor, but it's not a direct promise. Okay, so we don't want to say, if you do these things, you're going to become rich. That's not what the Bible is saying here. But he's saying that, chances are your life's going to be better. It's a principle for us. Okay, so hopefully we're holding these things close in our heart and part of who we are. Let not steadfast love and faithfulness forsake you. Bind them around your neck. Okay. So remember, think of it, Solomon's the king, speaking to his son, and this binding around the neck is not like a necklace like we think of, just like we put one on and take it off. This is like the royal collar, and it is bound to the neck, and when you're seen, this is who you are. Right? It is such a part of who you are that God's wisdom is a part of who you are that when you are seen, you're wearing this collar of who God is. Right? And write them on a tablet in your heart. Not this kind of tablet. Okay? This is the tablet that's easily destroyed. Drop it, as we saw just a minute ago. At least it didn't fall and break itself. But we're talking about a tablet it is a carving, it's an etching. It took effort, it took time. It did not come just from a single, very quickly writing on a piece of paper. That it is such a part of you that it is the tablet of your heart, that it is carved in there. So you will find favor and good success in the sight of God and man. So as you're doing these things, men may see this as a good thing. And I think that's what I saw at this conference with the guy from LinkedIn. Not necessarily a believer, but saw that this was an important thing that we're doing, and he totally thought it was a good thing, right? And so he saw favor in that. One thing I did want to point out about favor in this word, it really translates really well to the common grace, right? That you will receive grace as it comes to the world. And so typically that's how that phrase is used in its original writing. So favor or grace from the Lord. Okay. So Solomon goes on to tell us more about wisdom, and there's several different things. And to keep with the topic of what we're doing today, I'm going to go ahead and skip down to verses 21. And so we're going to do 21 through 24. Would someone like to volunteer to read those for us?
My son, let them not depart from your eyes. Keep sound wisdom and discretion, so they will be life to your son and grace to your neck. Then you will walk safely in your way, and your foot will not stumble. When you lie down, you will not be afraid. Yes, you will lie down, and your sleep will be sweet.
I love that. Your sleep will be sweet. So this week we're talking about rest and our devices going to bed before we are. And I think this is a really important passage to look here. So let's work through this. So, my son, do not lose sight of these things. We talked earlier about this being the new modern spiritual discipline, to be able to discipline ourselves from distraction and focus on God. Speaking of sight, this is really about continually working through this. One translation says, let them not depart from your eyes. Solomon has told his son the importance of constant attention, and that God's wisdom and discretion is important to be focused on. This requires a life of diligence, but also appropriately surrendering our heart that recognizes God's wisdom, okay? And recognizes God's wisdom that is greater than our own wisdom. it goes back to the around your neck, the adornment phrase. So like this is, again, a little easier to actually visualize, right, that collar. And so it's continually a part of who you are. So you're focused on it, and then people see that, right? And then in 23, then you will walk on your way securely, and your foot will not stumble. Okay. In principle, God guides those who honor his wisdom into paths of safety. There is nothing safer than living in the wisdom of the will of God. Now, when we were going overseas to be a missionary, people would give us this phrase. They would say, there's no place safer than the will of God. Okay, well, the center of God's will, that's right. No place safer than the center of God's will. Well, safer in a biblical perspective, that is correct. Most of the time, as Americans in our modern viewpoint, we look at safety and security in a completely different context. We look at our personal safety, right? So I think we have to understand that this is, you will walk securely in the way of the Lord, okay, not in our own personal way, okay? But we're focused on the Lord. And if you lie down, you will not be afraid. When you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. Free from distraction, cares, terrors that sometimes haunt sinners, believers, sometimes have trouble sleeping. Does anyone ever have a fitful night to sleep? Never, right? Do you ever have that time where you just can't fall asleep? And Amy, when you can't fall asleep, what do you do? What do you...
Are we telling the truth?
I'm telling you. So, what do you do when you can't fall asleep?
Well, I might take a bath or I might take a bit of drill.
No, that's not what I was asking for the joke. She picks up her phone. Yeah, I mean, that like...
And I do. If I wake up in the night, I immediately pick up my phone and try to check it and get my mind. Because usually what happens is I literally will wake up because my brain, not that any of you all do this, but my brain will jump to a new thing that I'm upset about or that I'm fixated. I think Jay talked about that this morning, right? Your brain starts going through all the upsetting things that are on. It's like your brain's trying to work through it maybe, and it wakes me up. And so my immediate reaction is I need to, and instead of, I'll be honest, instead of I don't reach for my Bible and sit there and read it. I reach for my phone and I think, I'll just check the news, which is totally the or I'll check, social media in the middle of the night just because I can't sleep. And that generally doesn't do it.
It doesn't work.
Generally,
Right.
Yeah.
So if we're going to lie down and our sleep is going to be sweet, we have to look back up at the rest of the passage at what he was talking about. And it was trusting and focusing on God and who God is and the principles that he has given us. Right? Now, it doesn't mean that we won't always be able to sleep, but if we can put aside those distractions and focus on the Lord, we are more likely to have sweet sleep. One of the theologians wrote, when Peter was in prison, in chains, between two soldiers, on the eve of his expected execution, when there seemed to be a step between him and death, he was able to lie down and not be afraid. So I'm afraid this is going to tilt again. Peter gave us a great example to follow. He was content, he was focused on the Lord, and he was, as the Bible says, he was able to lie down and not be afraid. Right? And so that's what we hope, that a good focus on wisdom and character and putting aside these distractions through some practical ways that we're about to talk about will hopefully help us to have sweet sleep. So the chapter was waking and sleeping. And Andy's commitment in his family is we wake up before our devices do, and they go to bed before we do. Okay, so we have this idea that many of us use our phones in bed. So go ahead and raise your hand. Do you use your phone in the bed? Okay. Don't worry. You and a lot of other people do this. They have devices to help you with your device, because you don't want your arm to fall asleep while you're trying to use it, right? So it goes right around your neck. And if that makes you a little bit nervous to go to sleep with something around your neck, and like it makes Amy's, don't worry. We have the bed headboard mounted. Okay. But if that scares you about it falling on breaking your nose, don't worry. We have the bed holster. Okay? So you don't even have to reach to the bedside table. You just slide it in the holster. Bam! You got it right when you need it. Okay? Huh? What did I
You used to say, let's have a TV that comes out from the bottom of the bed.
Yeah, there was a time that I was like, we could just have it like I'd build this like mechanism that could lift it up. But anyway, you're not supposed to tell on me, honey. Okay, so, but I thought these are everywhere. There are lots of this. Apparently, these are real. No, these are not jokes. These are real products. You can buy them on Amazon right now. Okay, but such a need that everyone seems to be doing this. We are not getting the rest that we need, nor are we spending the time in contemplation and solitude to focus on God, right? So this commitment of putting our devices to sleep before we do. And so I want us to think about how we can do that. So one is on the Screen Time app that we had talked about. You know, you can set it so that you can't access other apps other than the clock and some things at a certain time. So I've set mine for 10 o'clock, and so that's doing it. But it's really easy to just kind of override that, right? So we don't have a landline, so instead of you putting our phone in the kitchen, what I'm going to do is plug in my phone at the dresser, like across the room, okay? So when I go to bed, I could still hear it if there was an emergency. So if my in-laws called us because they needed something, we would be able to answer the phone, and we'd still hear it, but it's not going to be something I'm going to reach for in the night, okay? Also meant we had to buy an alarm clock, so we got like a $10 alarm clock, right? Because what are you going to do? That's your clock, right?
Phone across the room. It just means you have to get up to get up.
That's true. You got to get out of the bed to do that. So, all right. So there's going to be some practical things to do this. So I would really encourage, if you can find a way to, keep that out of the bedroom. That can be a really kind of helpful thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's why we're going to keep ours in the room, but it's just going to be across the room, so I can't grab it once I've laid down. Right. So I have to get up to answer the phone. I can still hear it. Yeah. So. But this evening time of phones in the bedroom, I think, are really important, especially when we talk about teenagers. So I want to read from the book. This is page 116. The nighttime bedroom also lends itself to a disinhibition and foolish choices, such as consuming images with sexual content and disturbingly often for teens, especially teen girls, who's making those images for the satisfaction for others. Even the most robust internet filters in your home network or your child's phone does nothing to filter pictures against message apps such as Snapchat. In person and with a good night's sleep, almost all of us would be far more careful with our own bodies and would exercise better judgment over the flights of our imagination than we do late at night. Fatigue and isolation compound our immaturity and susceptibility to temptation, especially for teenagers, but also for adults. That's why it's so alarming that more than 8 in 10 parents say their teenagers have their phones with them when they sleep. Among the parents themselves, 7 in 10 sleep with their phones next to their bed. And even at their best, social media, like all media, substitute distant relationships for close ones. A 15-year-old overcome by anxiety late at night might feel that she has no other choice but to turn to her parents down the hall from her bedroom for help and counsel. Now, she can send out a blizzard of text messages to her friends who completely, understandably, feel obligated to respond and feel gratified by the sense of being needed by a friend. But this text and emoji-mediated social support is thin, an echo chamber for teenagers with their limited perspective. It keeps a whole circle of friends awake late into the night and robs that 15-year-old and her parents of an in-person conversation, one that could be painful, challenging, reassuring, or even transformative. Okay. So in this passage, there is some things to fear, and there's also some things to go after, right? Like we don't want to miss the opportunity for that challenging conversation. Okay? We also don't want to give the opportunity for some really bad images or discussions to happen, and so we want to limit this opportunity. So for us and our family, we will commit to not have, when the kids do get phones, that they will not have them in their rooms. I think this is a really key piece, and I think there will be a time that we will cut it off and say, at this particular time, there will not be any use of that. So, anyone with teenagers, or anyone can give feedback on this, but I'm not there yet. So, anyone want to add to this discussion?
Actually, when Jody was at home, and after each time, we would take off her phone,
Mm-hmm.
and keep it on to the next.
So, when it's so much part of their academic life, it's really hard to understand where it cuts over.
So let's go ahead and go on to the next step, because it is about the educational piece. Learning and working. Andy says that their family aims for no screens before double digits, 10 years old, at school and at home. And for them, they did mostly homeschooling at that age, and so that was an easier thing for them to execute on. But I need to give you full disclosure here. I work on a program that puts VR headsets into schools right now. This is something that I think we want to use wisdom on here. Okay. Technology amplifies the teaching. And if you're teaching really well and you are a strong teacher and using good concepts, technology can amplify that, and you can move quicker, and connections can be made easier. But if you are teaching, you're not so good at it, or you're teaching things in not the best way of learning, then that technology will amplify those inconsistencies, especially when they're leading to distraction. Okay? And it is really easy for technology to become a distraction and not a help. And so it has to have boundaries. Okay? And that can be in the home, but in the classroom. And I think it's acceptable to ask some tough questions and understanding what your kids are doing on the computer at school. Okay? Just because they're not allowed to see inappropriate content doesn't mean that they're getting the value of what that technology could be given. They could just be, again, wasting time like we do often, right? And so we want to be very careful in this. And I don't have the same opinion of this as Andy does, but I do think we want to have wisdom and control on that. Okay. So, any thoughts?
That's most of his thing, though, is to not be sleepwalking.
Correct. Yeah. Don't sleepwalk into
About
this.
that, like,
Yeah.
if you were
Right.
don't just drift, right?
Mhm.
Like you have to just stay.
Right.
Like when you say you're hovering, I mean, like, but that's a good thing, right? You need to be like
Yeah.
engaged and know what's happening, and to
Right.
just kind of let the tide roll with you.
Mhm.
Seems like
Roll Tide?
No one said that.
going there.
No one said that.
Yeah. Right. That we are asking good questions, that we know what's going on. Yeah.
Really quick too is most kids are able to have good conversations. Like use this as springboard to talk about the hard things and the reasons behind why.
Dancing around and moving instead of just staring at the screen, listening to their favorite
Mm-hmm.
songs.
It's good. Yeah, I mean, there's a difference there, right? There is this so it's passive and staring at something versus you're actually engaging the mind and doing other things. Yeah.
To jump off that, we've noticed even with trying to be more aware the past few weeks, we have a refurbished. Somebody asked us one time. We put the picture up here of all. When we gathered all of our technology. What is that weird box on your thing? Like our Alexa that has a screen.
With the Alexa show.
And so we have a refurbished older one. And so the boys, though, what do? They want to see the screen when that one's on. But if the other one's on, it's usually because it's audible or it's music. And so there's a big difference in how they interact with the two of them.
And it has if you're walking past it or whatever, it puts up headlines and things that you can ask about. It's like, ask Alexa about the space shuttle yesterday or whatever, things, and they're not bad things. But then we noticed that it was turn off the TV, boys, and play. And then Hudson's looking at the Alexa, and we're just so So again, we've taken that, like we got rid of that part. So it was just like going in and like being aware of these things and making sure that we're doing them. So. And then we get to boredom. And this is something that as parents, we have, we probably hate to hear this word, I'm bored, okay? Andy says we use screens for a purpose and we use them together rather than using them aimlessly and alone. And as parents, we see moments like this where you have all of these things available and you say there's nothing to do. And then you are surrounded by toys. Are you not entertained? Okay. But this is not just about our kids. This is really about us monkeys. I log off of Facebook because I'm bored. I log back on 5 minutes later because I'm bored. Right? We are constantly bored. And we look for things to do when we're bored, and we have these habits that we do, like Facebook is like the fridge. It's like the fridge. If you're bored, you keep opening it. Right? So, first of all, before we talk about our kids, how do we fight boredom in ourselves? Right?
I think I've been trying to remind myself that it's okay to be bored. Like that's where creativity happens sometimes, or rest, or I don't know, it's even in a small way. We've got a dog this summer, and it's been nice just to sit there and like pet her sometimes. But I don't have to be doing anything. It seems so small, but like it's okay to be bored.
Someone in the previous class said, it's really okay to lay there and stare at the ceiling. Right? Like there's nothing wrong with that. Right? Are we able to have that discipline of solitude? Right? Okay. But when you're standing in the checkout line or the airport security line, as I was doing this week, we're all on our phones. Should we? Does that matter? What do you think?
So in this particular case, I love airports and airplane rides because I engage with other people and get to talk to them. It's led to really fun conversations.
You must be on Southwest.
You read Southwest. Yeah, I'm that guy too. Whoever I sit beside, I'm going to have a conversation. Best one ever was I had a professional gambler on one side and a IRS agent on the other. It was most entertaining, right? But none of the three of us picked up our phones. We were all just like having this really fun conversation. Yeah. So, what do you think about being out in public and always on our phones?
It puts a sign up to everybody else saying, "Don't bother me."
Yeah. It's a shield, right? Your phone is a shield from other people. Put the earbuds in.
Intended that way or not?
Right.
And there are probably times when it is intended that way.
Yeah.
But if you're just bored and you put the phone up, well, then nobody's going to talk to you.
Yeah. There's a professor at school that she said that like when she rides the bus that men talk to her a lot, and so she just puts on earbuds even if she's not listening to anything. She puts it in to keep people from like bothering her, right? Like it's intentional, right? And maybe we need a shield sometimes, right? But when we go into this constantly separating ourselves from society and disconnecting from the people around us, it's hard to build the relationships, and we might miss opportunities where God has given us opportunities to speak to people. Right?
I mean, the very reason most people are on their
I don't think it's that bad, but I mean, you would think it's going to get rough before it gets over.
Yeah. So let's talk about that with our kids, right? So if we need to combat boredom in ourselves and your kids are saying, if you say we can't get on your device, you can't use the television, then what are alternatives? There's the door.
No, I think he said take them outside.
Oh, take them outside. Wow. Right.
It's hot out there.
It's hot out there. And I mean, have you ever been at a park with your kids and noticed like how many people are on their phones? Play with toys. That's a great thing.
Good thing you're here, partner.
Right? If you have toys. Right. Yeah. So it's taking effort on our part, right? Like the device is easy. Engaging is hard. Right? I'm trying to do that. So I'm very proud of my wife. She had not biked until she had biked.
Rusher looks so excited.
Oh, he's tough. He's being tough.
I saw Rusher's outfit today. Oh, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
he is Mr.
Yeah, he's
dressing personality.
so. But Amy had not ridden a bike since she graduated from high school, except for one time. So since we've been married, yeah, because she had to. But now we, on Friday nights, if we're nothing else is scheduled or I'm in town, we will go biking and bike to dinner or bike the trail. And we've done what we did. What was the longest we've done so far?
We did. Oh, the first one we ever did, we did 4.5 miles up
To there,
UT.
yeah.
We ate
Yeah.
at Tobacco Road, downtown Durham, and then we 4.5 miles back.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
hadn't ridden but once in 15 years.
So we kind of, but so now we tend to like bike for about an hour,
No,
right?
about for an hour.
Yeah.
That was
And then last time Grayson got to go with us, and so it was just an opportunity for us to do it, and the boys are loving it, and they ask to do it all the time. So that's been a really good one. I showed you last week we were doing more yard work, and I think one of the things Amy and I realized that like Friday it was hard. They were like tired, and then all day Saturday I was tired. And then as the time went on, like they actually just kind of like
Stopped mentioning that they didn't want to do it.
yeah, they just kind of jumped in and like it
Sunday,
became
we laughed and told you last time. They got up that morning, jumped on the bed, and they go, "It's
Yeah.
Sabbath,
Yeah.
Sabbath." You know
Day
what
of
that means? Rest. And there's no working, and we're like,
tough. People are coming over on Monday, so there's no rest.
Sunday, we were gonna finish that yard, and they're like, "Rah." So I'll admit they whined on Sunday morning, but Sunday afternoon came, they didn't even mention it.
Yeah,
walked
they
outside.
got out there and they started doing it. And so sometimes in our mind, they're like, this is going to be so hard, and it will be at the beginning. But as we get used to it, I think it becomes a lot easier.
I think Dia made this point earlier, and I've found this in these last couple of weeks, that when you really engage with them and talk to them about these steps that you're taking, it helps so much more. Like the best part of that moving the games exercises was Jackson helping me do it.
Yeah.
And that cabinet that we use now, that had all of my old linens in it, like for different seasons and stuff. So we took it all out, refolded it, put it in the different like seasonal piles, and then put it in the attic with the right season boxes. But like he was going through like, oh yeah, that's fall, that's Thanksgiving, that's Christmas, that's spring. And so he didn't, when we were
John can't do that. John can't even do that. Sitting on the couch watching TV.
But even after that, he didn't then go ask to turn on a show or ask to do
Yeah.
anything else. He was already present in that, and then pulled out a game, played the game for it. Anna came back from a birthday party.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it took a 30-minute thing and turned it into upwards of 4 hours. Because we also go to Lowe's to get the right, right?
So,
No, okay.
yeah. Well, apparently y'all aren't the only ones. There was someone else in the other. So Jen and Ben Thomason bought new furniture because of this. Like they got a new table because of this, like rearranging the home thing and making a table that was not a fancy dining room table. It's like a farmhouse table that they felt good to do. So then Ben was like, okay, next week it has to be low budget changes. So, all right. There are things that we need to do to engage ourselves and to engage our kids, and also remembering that solitude is not boredom.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Right.
being bored and being still aren't like, we joke
Exactly.
in our house, cause I'm not motivated by doing.
Mm-hmm.
So we say, sitter's gotta sit. I sit, I do, but I'm not bored.
Yeah,
I just,
right.
I just don't,
Mhm.
I'm not motivated by productivity.
Yeah. We actually have a good bit of homework. Okay, we're wrapping this up, and we've got to apply this and kind of pull this together as a family. And you're going to need to spend some time thinking about this. Okay, so early in the week, you need to finish reading the chapters. Okay, so there's a few more. One about what I mentioned earlier. There's the one about worship and music. And so finish that. Okay, but you're going to write your 5 to 10 family commitments. So the book, he has 10 commitments that their family agrees on. I want you to have 5 to 10. Okay, and you're gonna, if you're married, you're gonna come in as a family, as a spouse, as a group, as a couple, and have yours as your family. And I want you to bring them in either on paper, or if you need to do it on your device, that's okay too. But it needs to be written out and thought through. Okay. We're going to actually schedule a specific dinner of the week because we have baseball on Mondays and we have soccer on Thursdays. We got all these different things. We're saying this is the day we're going to do our family commitments. Okay, and so that's going to be Wednesday night, right? So Wednesday night is our time where we're going to write these out and figure it out. I want you to think about the big goal of, we're trying to create good character, okay? Wisdom and courage, okay? And then some of these commitments should be around the time, about how you're going to use your devices and when you're going to use them, where you're going to use them, okay? So feel free to copy some exactly from the book. So if you're like, space, I like the space one. We're going to use that space one, copy it right from the book, you can use that. But if you want to alter it a little bit, you can do that too. So there's no plagiarism here. You can copy them, you can alter them, you can write your own completely for free. Okay? So bring them to class. And so then next week we're going to talk through the last couple of chapters. We're going to talk through some difficult topics, and then we're going to get very practical. And I'm going to show you lots of different technologies that you can, or the very specific technologies I think are best for you to be able to monitor and work with your children on that. Okay? So, all right, we are out of time. Great discussion. I'm glad y'all are all involved because you provided a lot of insights. So, Jen, do you want to pray for us to head up?